Good morning and welcome to this morning's reflection. Today I'd like to look at the life of a man who was not a natural leader, not a commanding bishop, and not a confident public figure. In fact, by most external measures, his life began in obscurity and unfolded in struggle. Why would I want to look at the life of such a man? Because through this very weakness, he became one of the church's most profound theologians and one of Christianity's great guides of the inner life. And he was Gregory of Nyssa, born in 335 and died in 395. Gregory was born into a remarkable family. His brother was Basil the Great, and he had friends who were remembered as giants of the church. Their names would be spoken with confidence and authority. Gregory of Nyssa, by contrast, was hesitant, intellectually brilliant, but pastorally uncertain. He did not initially desire at all to be a bishop. When Basil insisted he take up the office, Gregory found himself ill-suited to ecclesiastical politics and administration. I think I can identify with that. He was even deposed for a time, accused of financial mismanagement, which was probably a political move by his opponents. And this matters, because Gregory's theology is not born from triumph, but from displacement, loss, and inner searching. He writes not as one who has mastered God, but as one who has been mastered by mystery. He lived at a turning point in Christian history. The church was no longer persecuted. It was now entangled with the empire. Theology had become public, contested, and often weaponized. Debates about the Trinity were not abstract. They divided cities, emperors, and bishops. And Gregory entered these debates not in order to take sides, but as a contemplative thinker. His task was not simply to defend doctrine, but to articulate how the infinite God could be known at all. And here Gregory offers one of his most enduring gifts. For Gregory of Nyssa, God is not known by clarity, but by journey. He turns to Moses as his great teacher. Moses meets God first in light, the burning bush. Later on Sinai, in a cloud. And finally Moses enters the darkness where God dwells. Gregory dares to say that spiritual maturity does not move from darkness to light, but from light into deeper darkness. Not the darkness of ignorance, but the darkness of overwhelming presence. This is a radical claim. It means that the more we know God, the less we claim to comprehend God. True knowledge of God does not produce certainty, but produces humility. Not possession, but desire. Gregory calls this movement epictasis, the soul's eternal searching for God. Because God is infinite, the soul's journey never ends. Even in eternity, the soul does not arrive at a final resting place where God is exhausted or fully grasped. Instead, love deepens endlessly. Fulfillment does not mean completion, it means perpetual growth. This vision quietly reshapes everything. It means the Christian life is not about achieving perfection as a static state. It is about faithful movement. It means doubt, longing, and unknowing are not failures of faith, but signs of maturity. It means the spiritual life is not a ladder we climb and then step off of, but a horizon that continually recedes, drawing us forward. Gregory's theology is also inseparable from his anthropology, his understanding of what it means to be human. He insists that humanity is created in the image of God, not as a finished object, but as a capacity for infinite growth. To be human is to be called beyond oneself. Sin, then, is not primarily breaking the rules. Sin is stagnation. It is the refusal to grow, the turning inward, the shrinking of desire. Salvation, by contrast, is expansion, being drawn ever more fully into God's life. And that is why Gregory can speak of transformation without fear. He believes that God's goodness is so abundant, so persuasive, that even judgment serves restoration. While he stops short of dogmatic claims about universal salvation, his hope is unmistakable. Evil is finite. Goodness is infinite. Darkness cannot finally resist the light. And Gregory's vision is deeply pastoral, even if he himself struggled as a pastor. He writes not to control souls, but to free them from fear, from rigid images of God, and from despair over their own incompleteness. There is something profoundly gentle about Gregory. He does not shout God into existence. He whispers God into silence. And perhaps this is why Gregory speaks so powerfully to our own time. We live in an age of certainty and exhaustion, where faith is often presented as answers rather than as wisdom, as closure rather than invitation. And Gregory reminds us that faith is not the end of questions, but is the sanctification of our questions. To follow Gregory of Nyssa is to accept that the Christian path is unfinished by design, that God is always ahead of us, that holiness feels less like arrival and more like being drawn. Gregory never sought prominence, yet his legacy endures because he trusted that God is not smaller than our minds, but greater than our grasp. He teaches us that the soul's deepest rest is not in standing still, but in moving endlessly into love. And so Gregory leaves us with a quiet but liberating truth. We do not reach God by knowing enough, but by loving enough to keep going. And so may you be blessed today as you sit with this teaching, and as you yourself keep going deeper and deeper into the love of God, which is infinite and essentially unknowable in its entirety. Amen.